Hey, I'm Brad, and welcome to Overkill Reviews. And Jesus Christ, does it feel weird to say that after quite a long time. It has been 9 months since my Lorna Shore review came out, and a lot has happened since then, which is why I've been absent, other than answering some questions, some trivia questions, proving that I occasionally know what I'm talking about. So, what's happened since then? Two bands that I manage, Of Sulfur and Signs of the Swarm, both released their albums on Century Media. Speaking of Signs of the Swarm, they're about to start a tour with Carnifex, whose new album comes out October 6th, To the Grave, The Last 10 Seconds of Life. It's gonna go all around the States, and Signs of the Swarm has some routing shows through Canada, their first time since pre-pandemic, so you should go out. Also, launching today, when this video comes out, I launched my death metal plushie company, Brutal Buddies. I started out here with Devourment's Butcher the Week guy. We've got the blue one, which is like the album, a little bit more rare. There's 150 of these. And the yellow one that was like the re-release, a little bit less rare, 350 of those available. If you want to find out more, maybe pick up one or both, brutalbuddies.com. There will be more coming. Actually, a plushie company, well, not the company, but plushies in general, is a pretty good hint at what got me out of review-tirement. It's death metal's cuddliest, if that's a word, yet most menacing frontman and his band of brutes. My return to Overkill Reviews is none other than Cannibal Corpse, their album Chaos Horrific, out today on Metal Blade Records. All right, bio again. I've done a Cannibal Corpse review. Other people have done Cannibal Corpse reviews. I've interviewed Cannibal Corpse. Other people have interviewed Cannibal Corpse. So we're gonna do a bio, but we're gonna keep it quick. We have plenty of content if you need to be updated on this. So they founded in 1988, Buffalo, New York, were quickly picked up by Metal Blade Records, put out a thrashier album, Eaten Back to Life, then quickly returned with Butchered at Birth, Tomb of the Mutilated, The Bleeding, Chris Barnes out, Corpse Grinder in. Somewhere in there, they had the hilarious 1-2 punch of appearing in Ace Ventura and also being accused of like eroding the fabric of America because they're so dreadfully terrible. Fast forward to now, Corpse Grinder's neck is seemingly getting bigger and bigger, and as it does, so increases his propensity for this rapid fire delivery of lyrics, which is now a trademark of their sound. So that was 4 albums pre-Corpse Grinder. This is 12 with him, 16 total. What makes this one special? Well, it's their second with Eric Rutan on guitar after a multitude of albums where he was producing. They've had a few lineup changes in between there, but I would say this is probably one of the bigger lineup shakeups they've had since 2006 Kill. So I was quite fond of the last album. If you haven't watched that review, you can go do so. Are they good for a 1-2 punch here? We'll find out. Bass is essentially the first thing you hear on this album, as opener Overlords of Violence kicks off with some crazy bass work from founding member and low-end leader Alex Webster. And of course, when you've made a song with a bass passage as iconic as Hammer Smashed Face, any soloed out bass will immediately bring that to mind. But it's just an amazing way to start the album. It gets the energy flowing, the start and stop with the other instruments, coming in, and it just pushes through this song. The energy continues into the next, and then well beyond. But the bass don't stop there. Bass in general is just kind of a theme, something that I kept thinking of throughout this album. The production has a lot more low end than their trademark, slightly more trebly take on death metal tones. In terms of, you know, recent albums, it's probably closest to the production of an album like Torture. It just has that extra oomph. And while I don't think many bands could pull off Cannibal Corpse's more trebly tones, them adding this more bassy feel really accentuates everything and makes this an exciting album. Of course, Eric Rutan is a key component of Cannibal Corpse, producing 6 out of the 7 albums from 2006's Kill and to the present day. But this is, again, as mentioned earlier, his second as a member. And here, he further embeds himself into the Cannibal Corpse sound. On his first outing with the band, Violence Unimagined, which came out 2 years ago, it was more obvious when you first heard it which songs were crafted by him. Here, it all seems to fuse together, become more of like a who did what, where did it come from, and it just complements the entire package very well. Rutan's longtime main project, Hate Eternal, seeps into Cannibal Corpse's trademark brutality here, and that ends up resulting in, I did some metal math for y'all here, but it's hard to remember math. A more digestible Hate Eternal, or a more dissonant, weird Cannibal Corpse, which somehow equals, again, math, the, you know, realm of a slightly more accessible Suffocation at times. But even that doesn't fully encapsulate it. But again, it feels like Cannibal Corpse evolved. So you've heard of run-on sentences, which if you watch BangerTV for quite a while, you know that's pretty much how I talk, which is kind of ironic because I was a writer for a long time. But hey, I'm just being myself. You're supposed to encourage that. It's like good for mental health. Just embrace yourself. Anyway, speaking of embracing yourself, Cannibal Corpse have embraced what I would call run-on riffs. Actually, I'm not even just gonna say they embraced run-on riffs. They've mastered them. These labyrinthine, you know, passages don't just go on and keep going on and keep going on, but as they go on, they build on each other, taking musical motifs from previous stanzas and slightly mutating them and growing, and then suddenly you've got this long passage that feels like the same. I'm not gonna say it feels like the same riff, but it has a very similar feeling, but you realize it's been, you know, 15, 20 seconds, and it hasn't really repeated. It feels fresh, yet familiar. Speaking of run-on sentences, doing whatever I want, being myself, I'm gonna break the rules and I'm gonna play 2 clips. Because if you're not showing run-on riffs by run-on clips, run on home, boy. Solos in Pitchfork Impalement are just awesome, as are the solos in the title track. It starts out kind of sounding a little like Halloween, like the holiday. Not so much the power metal band Halloween. It does not sound like that. You know it ain't a Cannibal Corpse album without the brutal crushers. And here, as you'd expect, there are a handful, a couple, a few, depending on your definition of what is slow, low and slow. These are songs that prioritize smash over splash. Bloodbind is a low, slow, heavy song, but even that doesn't prepare you for, and this might be my favorite title on the album, Drain You Empty, which closes the album with a very slow passage. It's almost as if Cannibal Corpse was like, yeah, we'll do, you know, a minute of death doom here. So it's in the frickin' title, man. Chaos. Last album, Violence Unimagined, felt like this tug of war between like a thrashier side, which may have, you know, risen from the dead when the band was revisiting Eaten Back to Life for its 30-year anniversary. I even interviewed Paul for it, and maybe that kind of seeped out a little bit. The tug of war was between that and the more progressive elements that just ooze out of Rutan's fingertips. Here, the thrashy elements take a little bit of a backseat, and in doing so, the tug of war continues, and it's between, you know, elements like the low and slow parts and these chaotic parts. The chaos, you know, also extends to those run-on riffs and more. It's just, there's a lot going on, bracket, complementary. This album is as insane as finding yourself, you know, waking up somehow in the cover art. Not since Gore Obsessed has there been a Cannibal Corpse cover that is this frightening to be in. I mean, there's usually, you know, a bad guy, a main threat, and then there's some dead bodies. This time, threats all around. You wake up in this cover, you're gonna die, it's gonna be crazy, it's gonna be chaotic, there's gonna be a lot of blood. I think that would make Cannibal Corpse proud. This album is awesome. So now I'm gonna sum it up and give you the, what do we call that? A conclusion? Verdict. God damn, it's been a while. So you just watched this whole review. You can probably guess. I'm a pretty big fan of Cannibal Corpse and this album. I was quite a large fan of Violence Unimagined when it came out too. You know, gun to my head, jump into this Cannibal Corpse album or make your pick. I think I would pick this one over. There is a lot of meat and beef on this album. Beef as in beefy production, meat as in a lot to chew on, a lot of creative writing. Throughout all of this, they maintain the Cannibal Corpse sound, you know, despite exploring these, you know, run-on riffs and slight Rutanification here and there, you know, with a few pillars of the band. We've got, you know, Corpse Grinder, his, you know, unmistakable voice, and then the drumming of Paul Mazurkiewicz. Other bands would probably be getting a little extra blasty. Paul keeps it honed in the pocket, and that allows, in addition to Corpse Grinder and the fact that they have a bass player who is so prominent, this sounds like Cannibal Corpse no matter the diversions they take. And again, between the two, gun to my head, get in that album cover, risk your life, I think I'm gonna pick this one. I don't remember what I gave Violence Unimagined. I think it was 4.5 skulls out of 5. But life is about living and learning and growing. I'm gonna give this one 4.5 skulls out of 5 too. All right, it's shout out time. It's been a long 9 months. I got some shout outs to do. First off, I already told you 2 bands that I manage put out their albums. Of Sulfur, Signs of Swarm. Look up the titles yourself. They're on Century Media. It's not that hard. September 8th, we had a really good week for technical death metal. We had Canadian homies Cryptopsy and their album As Gomorrah Burns, and then the masters of tech, groove, brutality, Dying Fetus, most insane album title. We've got Make Them Beg for Death. It wouldn't be shoutouts if I didn't give a shout out for something that came out today. We've got the new one from Wormhole, Almost Human, on Season of Mist. It's like brutal, technical death metal. It's stuff that I like. Speaking of brutal, I'm just gonna list a few other brutal death metal bands that have released albums this year that I've really liked that you should check out. We've got Nithing, I don't know how to say it, Molested Divinity, we've got Putridity, we've got Torture Rack, and there's a band called Vile Fixation. They just released their first single. Look it up. All brutal stuff. The last one's a little bit more on the deathcore side, I think. I don't remember. I don't know, man. It's been 9 months. My head is going, you know, a million miles a minute, but I'm happy to be here. Thank you for watching this. Thank you for continuing to support Banger TV. I'm not going to take 9 months to do this again. Have a great day. Let us know what you think in the comments. I forget how to say goodbye.